And our biggest efforts is education, outreach, and control of invasive species. We focus primarily on land invasives, terrestrial, and we do some work with aquatics as well in riparian. And we are a connecting organization. So we have a lot of resources, a lot of links on our website within the staff and the members and the board members. Lots of expertise on invasive species, from which ones are here, which ones are coming, what to do once you have one on your property. What are the options? Do you want to do a biologic control? Do you want to do a physical removal? Do you want to use herbicide? A combination with that, with a prescribed burn, and we can help you, work those things out. We also do land walkovers, so we go to places that generally private property and walk over, give an inventory of invasive species along with the more common native plants. So that's a service that we offer, and we usually schedule those between May and October when there's leaves and fresh vegetation to look at. So those have been pretty popular with folks around the area. So we work on those things. We also have an invasive monitoring program where we go out and monitor invasive plants on private land and on roadsides, which really helps land managers make decisions on the property and make best use out of all best management practices. So otherwise, we hope to continue to be on the cutting edge of what's coming, to know what those plants are before they get here, and be monitoring those as they come, and to know and get that information out to others to make decisions. We have done some consulting on prairies where we've walked those. We find some of those invasive species on the edge generally, or they've come in from a roadside, potentially from a mower, and then we can identify what they are, how much of the population is on your property, and then from there figure out what would be the best mode of action. So would you just have a few of those? Can you handle them, pulling them or cutting them off? Do you need herbicide treatment? And then who are the outlets and the contractors and the options you can go with? So we also have a large enclosed trailer with all equipment, generally for landowners. So that's a good thing to take a look at or to ask. We can talk about that and what works, what doesn't. After 11 years of doing this, what is your best option as a landowner, from herbicide wands and sprayers to loppers to hand saws and battery powered saws as well. So we have a website. It's lcinvasives.org. We also have an active Facebook page. If you look us up, you'll see that. That's kind of the more recent things that are happening are listed there. And we have a ton of resources on there for folks to engage in. And we have a membership that is very knowledgeable on this. And our current chair is a former native landscape art designer, and had his company and still does consulting on the side. So plus we have a lot of other folks that are very educated on invasive species. Most of them have, the more active ones have had tours and done some workshops on their property. So that's kind of where we're at and what we provide. And we're based out of Menominee. Our office is right by the public library, right across the road, parking lot pretty much. And we have a ton of resources there. And if you want to have an event or something, get a hold of us, and we can do a field day and work something out as well as that. So we are connected with all the major organizations and agencies in the area, and we work back and forth to share information and to be that connecting organization. So that's really our role and what we work on. So anything else, Kathy, that I missed or you want me to say?
Well, there's a lot that you do. And, I just saw an announcement that you sent out yesterday or today or just recently anyway, about April 6th that there's going to be a Wren's Weed Science Lab is going to be talking about managing invasive plants without killing native forbs. That's part of a series that's, you had mentioned, right?
Yes, yeah, we work tightly with the Wren's Weed Science Lab in Madison, Mark Renz and Ann Pierce, and they're having a Wednesday series where they have once a week through, starting this week going through April, and they have an hour where they talk about most current research going on with invasive species, usually on the herbicide level and sometimes on biologic control as well. And they're a great resource, and they've been part of our workshops over the years. And so we can get you connected with those folks as well. If you have a question of an invasive or a plant, you don't know what it is, feel free to send an email with some photos or give a call and send that to us, and we can help identify that as well. So just to be a resource for folks out there. We are doing active restoration work on some woodland areas and in edges of prairies. So if there's questions, feel free to ask those or get a hold of us. So
that's great. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate this. Our next speaker is Sunshine Love from Prairie Moon Nursery, and she is the production manager, sales and consultant. You do a lot of things there, Sunshine. It says Rebecca, but she's going in, she's going incognito maybe tonight. I don't know. But anyway, Prairie Moon is located in Winona, and for those of you who may not be familiar with Winona, it's across the Mississippi River, kind of between Fountain City and Trempealeau. Did I get that right, Sunshine?
I think so. Yeah, across from Trempealeau area. And then we're even more rural from that. So we're about 15 minutes away from Winona in the city. But yeah, so we are strictly a native plants to North America. And so any vegetable things like that you're looking for, we won't have those. So strictly native to North America species. We have over 700 species, and this year is actually our 40th anniversary. Yeah, so kind of a special year to be doing something like this. But so we have a lot of different resources for you. We are kind of your supply company, I guess you could call us. So I think since we have so many different avenues to access things, I'm just kind of gonna make it like big to small concept. So I'm sure that most of you might be doing prairie spice seed. And so the majority of our species, the vastness of our species really comes from our seed sources. And so we do pre-design or custom seed mixes. We have custom seed mixes that we can make for you. And then you can really pick and choose what kind of species you want or you don't want. And that's where you can get a little bit more play with the cost of a seed mix. And so we have specific avenues. If you want to do that kind of custom seed mix, you email our quotes at prairiemoon.com. And so you send us an email with the specs of your site. And then essentially with that email string, then we can kind of like make sure everybody gets serviced in a timely manner. So that's in the custom seed mix range. If you're looking for a smaller area or you're just looking for something that's more pre-designed, then we actually have several different pre-designed seed mixes, and they range from 500 square foot pre-designed all the way up to an acre. And so we have those on our shelves. We always keep stock of them. Sometimes the species in there might change ever so slightly, but for the most part, those are always going to be in stock and ready for you. And they ship out usually within the week or so. So nice and easy on our pre-designed seed mixes. And then going smaller than that, we have seed mix enhancements. Just it's essentially like little packets, 25 square feet or so. And so you can get those to kind of add a little splash of color to something that's already been there. And then we also have packets. All of our packets are $3. You can get them in every single species that we have when they're in stock. And then we sell all of our seed that, again, we have in stock in several different quantity options, sometimes all the way up to, you know, the ½ ounce. So that kind of thing. But yeah, that's it, basically our seed sector of purchasing. And then our live plant material, we have our main seasons are spring and fall. And so the biggest thing for all of you to remember, because I'm sure that a lot of you really know your plants and you want the ones that we don't have a whole lot of sometimes. And so those go online on January, like the first week in January, typically. So, and they really like the ones that we only have, you know, 50 of this and 100 of that, sometimes they can go quite fast. And so those ones, yeah, January 1st, you want to start thinking about your prairies and things like that. For our live plant material, right now we still have some, and we still have a lot of different products available. We still have a lot of bare roots, but then you're looking at basically getting your plants somewhere between mid-April and early June. So we're all in the same, you know, region. We all know it's winter time and we have to grow things by seed, get it to an adequate size in order to get it shipped out. So so there are all of those different avenues, and that's like the shipping time that you're looking for the spring. We have a shorter window of shipping that happens in July and August. A couple packs of potted plants or 3 packs of potted, and then also our bare roots, a few different species that they don't really like it in the spring. So we do those like spring beauties. Wild hyacinth goes in the summertime. And so I say summer in August-ish. So there's like a handful of species that we're actually broadening that section of our product base is the summertime. And then we pause again and then we pick it back up in about October for our bare root plants. And yeah, and I think September we also do 3 packs of potted. So we have our bulk of things in the spring, a couple in the summer, and then another section in the fall. So we really try to have something available for everybody whenever you find time to make that order and feel like planting. So at least that's our live plant. But again, we have seeds all year round. We are shipping those out all the time. And as I'm sure a lot of you do also realize that plants, they come to seed sometimes in midsummer, but a lot of times in fall. And then we dry them, we store them, and then we process them through the winter time. So the most recent year's crop is being sold, you know, so last year's crop of 2021 being sold this year because we use the winter time to process those seeds out of our plants. So we store our seed in low humidity, cool temperatures. So we like to pride ourselves on having clean seed and viable seed for you. And then I would say another huge resource that we do is we are here to help you. We have several people, including myself, on our sales team, and it's not uncommon to have a call that just asks about your prairie. You know, what situation are you in? What year are you in? We kind of take all of your different factors into account. And obviously we tell you that there's no one way to do anything. And there's no perfect way to build a prairie. So you kind of have to play with what you have a lot of times, but that's a lot of what we do as on our sales team is help you and help you get product and then help you grow that product. So we're really here for you, and we devote our catalog to that too. So Kathy, I wasn't sure if I want to just bring them to the website. There's a really great filtration option. Do you want me to see if I can share my screen if I'm technology savvy enough for that? I think this will work. Can we, Kathy, you gotta go.
sorry, I punched the wrong thing. Share
Okay.
screen.
Can you see the website? Oh, share. There we go. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So if you go, since we're mainly an online based company, you can visit us and set an appointment to kind of talk about things if you'd like to, but we have so many resources on our website. So I just want to point out these top tabs here, especially as our plants start to sell out. If you go to specifically the tab for specifically the plant, as you see, our mix and match trays and things like that are starting to get sold out. But if you click on bare root plants, then you see specifically what we still have left in bare roots. So you can see all of those options that they give you. Again, all of our different seed mixes. We have several different, these are pre-designed seed mixes that are listed on here. And the aspect that I want to show you about that is underneath in each of our products, we tell you about the product. And then these tabs here, the components tab is what you want to look for. This is what's going to be inside that seed mix. So that's really handy to know what's in there. And then if you, this is the other avenue. If you want a specific kind of a plant and you have a specific kind of a site, any of our tabs here have this filtration option on the side. And so you can say, I have full sun, I have medium soil, and I actually can choose my state now. So this is this year a new option for us. So things that are native to Minnesota. And then it will give you specifically those options. Now you can see a lot of different options because I'm in seed category. So, and then you can choose your height and your colors and bloom times. Another avenue that's nice is deer resistant and things that do really well in like your small spaces or things that might not do necessarily well. So you know, that might be kind of aggressive that you might want to stay away from if you're working with really small spaces. Seeds, since you since we're all kind of learning about seeds and things like that, one thing to point out is if you were wanting to plant seeds and you wanted it to germinate this spring, you might want to choose categories like this C10, cold moist for only 10 days or cold moist for maybe 30 days. So that's the amount of time needed for those seeds to break that dormancy period. So that's like, you know, our winter's kind of starting to run out. So these are the species that you might be looking for in that avenue. Or the germ code A is no pretreatment necessary. So I'd take off C and I'd add A and say, what can I put out just like I were to grow a vegetable? And I would put it out now and it would germinate when temperatures and moistures are appropriate. So you can really categorize and see what your options are on our website. And, you know, you can say, I only want wildflowers, I only want grasses, but it's a really good way to help yourself learn what your abilities are, what you could put there, you know, that kind of thing. Our range maps are always there as a resource. So all of our plant information, yeah, it's a big avenue how our sales reps learn about all of our numerous species of plants that we have. So yeah, there's a lot there. And so hopefully I didn't go too fast or cover it too much. Another great, since we are a company that likes to teach, our learning tab brings you to a bunch of different categories. You know, how to grow your prairie from seed, the first 3 years of your prairie, how to germinate things. So, and we like to add pictures to stuff as much as possible. So there's a lot out there and we, again, are always here to help you. So I'm going to attempt to stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Sunshine. I appreciate that. I can echo about the help. You know, one of the other things that, you know, we've been able to use in talking to some of the sales reps is the amount, you know, when we talk about how many acres we have or how much land we want to cover, and then we can talk about the amount that we might need of a particular seed, prairie, or purple prairie clover, how much, per acre, and what, or for the small areas. So it's really nice. Sunshine, thank you. Thank you. A
You're
lot of
very
information.
welcome. I'm trying to stop sharing my screen. I might have to leave the meeting and come back, because at the moment
I think did it just go off?
maybe
no,
you can
it's-
kick me off, actually,
That's what I was
Kathy.
just trying, this will stop. Do you want to continue? Yes. Well, it's not doing, isn't
Okay.
that interesting?
Oh,
Oh, there we
just
go.
made it. Okay. I
All
think
righty,
maybe I-
sounds good. Thank you, Sunshine. Let's go to Rob Schubert. Rob is from the Quercus Land Stewardship Services, and he's the senior project manager and botanist at Quercus. I think you have 2 offices now, don't you? Black Earth and DeForest?
That is correct. So I work out of our Black Earth office.
Go for it, Rob.
So we're a full service restoration company focused on all landscapes of Wisconsin. So we work in prairies, savannas, wetlands. Increasingly, we're also working more in kind of the built environment, working in more urban areas, on a lot more green infrastructure, urban stormwater type plantings. The majority of the land of our clients are private landowners, but we also work with other organizations, such as various chapters of the Prairie Enthusiast and municipalities, as I said. We offer a range of different services, and it's all very site specific. So it generally starts with a site visit, and we might be going out and looking at a new home construction, and the landowners want to establish prairie from scratch, from seed. It might be that they have a remnant bluff prairie that we need to get invasive species off. So it's all very different. And whether we're working on starting a prairie from scratch, or we're kind of taking over a reconstructed prairie that's maybe 5, 10, 20 years old, may have various issues, or if it's a remnant prairie, it's all very different. So it all kind of I like to look at things like the size of the prairie, the landscape context that it's in, such as, is it in an urban environment, is it surrounded by agricultural land or pasture land, etc. And then also what the client's goals are, because that goes a long way in what we do. So when I go to a site, I'm considering all those things. I'm also looking at, especially when we're dealing with remnants, what is there, because that's going to focus a lot of what needs to be done. So if I'm seeing a lot of really nice conservative species, then maybe we just need to kind of nudge it a little bit in the direction where we want it to go. If we're seeing a lot of invasive species or a lot more weedy natives, then that's going to let us know that the site's a lot more degraded, and we're going to have to do a lot more work to get it back on track. The next thing is the site prep. Sometimes that is prescribed burning. Sometimes that's a lot of invasive species management. Say if we're taking an old hay field and we want to convert it to a prairie planting, then we're generally doing invasive species management for at least one full growing season before we're looking at seeding. When we do seeding, I always develop a very site-specific seed mix. Just because I think that is what is going to be generally the best for the site. I work with Prairie Moon to develop all my custom seed mixes, and they're awesome to work with, very helpful, and they have a pretty good range of things. There's a few species I wish that they would have more of sometimes, but they usually have most of what I'm looking for. And how we seed depends a lot. Sometimes if it's a small site, we'll just hand seed, or we'll bring in an ATV. Or if it's a larger site, we'll often subcontract out and have it drill seeded. And then, of course, there's the follow-up management. Oftentimes that's mowing, especially on smaller sites and where the landowner can do so. I generally recommend keeping it mowed that first year. Definitely generally looking at mowing in the second year or third year, so on and so forth, for control of all those biennials, such as wild parsnip, Queen Anne's lace can often be a problem, and then like some of the biennial thistles like nodding thistle and plumeless thistle. So for those sort of things, generally it's mowing is what we recommend. There's also a lot of herbicide weed management that we do for the nastier things like Canada thistle, birds foot trefoil, crown vetch, all those sorts of things. And then of course, prescribed fire. That's something that our company really, we like to think that we specialize in, and we get to travel around and see a lot of cool places around the state and other states doing prescribed fire. And of course, it's hugely important for prairies and our other natural landscapes throughout this region. And then oftentimes we're also overseeding existing prairies, generally overseeding existing reconstructed prairies. Oftentimes, depending on how they were originally done or the follow-up management, they'll often be too forb heavy. They can be too grass heavy, whether that be there's dominated by Indian grass, or there's way too much Kentucky bluegrass, et cetera, or we're just trying to promote the diversity. So we're often looking at that and incorporating other management activities to try to correct some of those issues. And that's pretty much, I think, what I had on my list.
Rob, one of the things that's really been helpful, you've been out to Dobbs Landing, a site that we've been working with working on our chapter, or chapter's been working on rather, and you helped us with developing fire breaks. You got us started in some pretty rough terrain of fire breaks. One of the things that strikes me is that anything relative to prairie development or thinking through a prairie project, your group seems to do. Is that?
Yeah. So one thing that I didn't really mention is one step after the site visit is we're often developing plans. These can be long-term management plans or work plans, but just kind of thinking through the steps and laying out what those initial steps are. And that's often something that we're developing for landowners, so that they have a plan, so that they know what it's going to take, and it's kind of defined what sort of things they need to be doing and what sort of things we need to be doing. Because you can put, you could put down the nicest seed mix that Prairie Moon and I could put together, but if you're not doing the follow-up, then it's really all for naught. So, and I think a lot of times people don't necessarily realize how much of a long-term commitment prairie restoration is. In fact, it's never done. There's no end point, and it really often takes years before you can see some of those species. Something like, I think, there's certain species that you're not going to see flower for 7 years. So for us to put it in a seed mix and to put that seed on the ground entails a bit of a certain amount of trust and commitment to the project.
Absolutely. I think that people who work with prairie and savanna have got to be some of the most hopeful people in the world.
Yeah, and it's really great, especially the savanna work. I meet with a lot of people that are very dedicated. They're doing a lot of work themselves. They're spending a lot of money for our company to come in and do the work. And the thing that they say is, I'm not going to see this in my lifetime, but in 100 years, someone's really going to appreciate this.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. It's a wonderful legacy. Absolutely a wonderful legacy. Rob, thank you. Thank you. We're going to go on now to John Sippl. John, there you are. there you are. And John is the NRCS conservationist and serving Dunn County. There's a conservationist in every county, isn't there? NRCS in every county in Wisconsin?
For the most part, I would say once you're south of Highway 8 and south, yes. Highway 8 and north, then they get combined with a couple different offices. But for the most part, each county in the state or each county in the nation, for the most part, has NRCS representatives for each district you're in.
Ah, okay. Well, yeah, go for it. And I'm trying to bring up your screen. Do you see your slideshow?
I do.
Oh, all right. So John, tell me when you want me to move it.
Oh, sounds good. Go ahead.
Go for it.
Go ahead, Kathy.
All righty.
So NRCS, basically we're a federal agency that deals with landowners on private lands. Previously, we were called the Soil Conservation Service. We were created back in the 1930s due to the Dust Bowl trying to protect our, I'm going to say topsoil at that point in time. Even today, we can still see here in Menominee, we can still see dust storms happening down in the prairie or the Rusk Prairie. We still have water erosion.
Uh-oh. Do we lose you? Do we lose you, John?
Yep.
Can everybody else, is everybody else on, or is it my, just want to make sure it's not my computer.
It's not just you.
It's not, yeah.
Okay,
I think he
No,
froze.
we just lost John, Kath.
okay, thanks. John, I don't know if you can hear us, if you want to come out and come back in again. Well, hopefully we get John back again. I don't see him. You know, there always has to be one technological glitch, doesn't there? You know, it isn't a good Zoom if you, I don't want to say a good Zoom. There isn't a Zoom if you don't have a technological glitch. Oh, there's John. John, are you still frozen?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. We lost you for a while. Okay, I keep hitting the recording button instead of the share screen. Obviously, I have fat fingers. We're going to try this again. John, are you okay?
I'm good with that. Yeah, I'm just going to leave my screen off maybe and my video off, and hopefully that'll help.
Okay, well, we're going to go back here and now, wonder why we're not getting the slideshow. Okay. And okay, John, here we go.
I'm not sure
Are you
how much
there,
of the,
John?
Yep, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yep, yeah, we can.
Okay, I'm not sure how much of the first slide you got, but NRCS is a federal conservation agency. It was started back in the 1930s. We used to be called the SCS. We were created during the Dust Bowl, trying to protect our topsoil at the time. Flash forward basically almost 90 years, and we are still having dust storms and having issues with our soil erosion as well as water erosion, protecting or polluting our surface waters and our groundwaters. Since that time, NRCS has basically changed, or Soil Conservation Service has now become NRCS, which is now changed. We are now to protect all natural resources of America's private lands. Go ahead, Kathy. Go ahead. Basically, we work with customers, landowners, farmers who have agricultural lands or natural resources that they feel that they have a resource concern with. Maybe it's inadequate habitat, maybe it's invasive species, maybe it's soil erosion. Basically trying to work with a conservation plan and updating themselves or updating the landscape to a more desirable landscape. I personally have been working with natural area habitat and grassland restorations my whole entire career. I started working on goat prairies, which Rob had a beautiful picture up previously. and then moved into more grassland restorations throughout the state. Go ahead, Kathy. Basically, there's a couple different programs that we can offer here. One is this conservation assistance. Do you have questions on your prairies? Like everyone else mentioned, basically we have an opportunity to meet, go over your site, look at your soils. Soils is what drives basically what species you want to plant on your site, and or basically trying to rehab, getting back into where you are. Then we also have our, I'm going to say, financial assistance programs, which are authorized through the Farm Bill. Go ahead, Kathy. The first one I'm going to talk about is EQIP. Do you want to take the next slide, Kathy? Go ahead. EQIP is an acronym. NRCS is great for acronyms. It's alphabet soup, basically. But EQIP is a voluntary conservation program that supports production, agriculture, as well as, I'm going to say, natural habitats that we can basically have a mutual benefit to the environment. Go ahead, Kathy. We offer financial and technical assistance with structural management, conservation practices, and agricultural land. Go ahead. Usually our funding mechanisms happen in the fall. So ideally we'd have anyone that would express interest now through, I'm going to say, October, November. We would make a site visit, offer some consultation, and then see, ask what the producers, what the landowners' goals and objectives are. Seeing, can we meet in the middle, and then can we offer some financial assistance? Go ahead, Kathy. One of the things that we offer are contracts. And if there's a mutual relationship or mutual benefit that the landowner wants to move forward with, we would offer a contract. Some of our examples can include, go ahead, Kathy. Conservation cover. So if you have an existing prairie, or you have, say, Rob mentioned like a hayfield, and we're trying to reintroduce prairie or rehab prairie back into there. We have cost share payments that can go forward and offer assistance to landowners to basically get back into that native habitat. Here's some examples. We're going to focus on like scenario 2, the native species, or like native scenario 43, native species with foregone income. The foregone income portion refers back to cropland. If you are going to take a cornfield or a soybean field out of production and putting it back into prairie, that would be some of the payment rates that you would be looking at potentially receiving. Go ahead, Kathy. If we're going to focus on more, I'm going to say wildlife or more specialized habitats. For example, let's say we want to look at monarch butterflies. We want to have a special planting specifically for monarchs. We look at scenario 237, specialized habitat on cropland. You're looking at about $1,000 an acre. Our rates basically are all encompassing. So Rob mentioned site prep, the planting and the follow-up aspects of all the plantings or all the management that would have to happen. Basically that $1,000 an acre is encompassing all of that management activities. Go ahead, Kathy. If we're looking at more of I'm going to say a rehab or goat prairie management, or, some of those sites that were there, but we need to do something different with. Obviously we have to get rid of brush. So depending upon the type and the scale of the brush that's there, there's some different payment rates and based on the, I'm going to say labor intensity of our work. So like scenario 10 down there would be more for the goat prairie restoration. We have steep inclines or steep grades. We're out there wielding a chainsaw on 20% slopes. It's not fun. So that's where we look at that type of payment scenario. Go ahead, Kathy. Once that brush is cut, there's always a follow-up treatment that's needed. That's where we look at, can we use a prescribed fire to come in there? And with fire breaks, and then actually doing the ignition and the burning of that prairie as well. Go ahead, Kathy, please. One of our other programs that we can look at is CRP. Go ahead, Kathy. CRP is the Conservation Reserve Program. One more time, please. And then we can do a couple clicks right away. I think there's 3 clicks there.
Okay.
CRP is it's a voluntary conservation program that is more or less to retire cropland. That's the whole specifics. If it's not cropland, basically it's not eligible for the CRP payment. The other thing that it has to be eligible for is that 4 out of 6 years crop. Basically, that I just reiterated that as well. Go ahead, Kathy. The nice thing about CRP is that there are 2 different payment factions for it. The first one is the annual average rental rate for the land. So if it's agricultural land, the landowner was previously probably getting some sort of rental income off of that, or they were growing crops themselves. In this case, CRP basically reimburses them for that rental rate, taking those productivity values off the soils and then going from there. Go ahead, Kathy. Contract length can be 10 to 15 years. Go ahead, Kathy. And there's also cost share available for those practices. Right now, depending upon the type of species and the type of prairie you would like to plant, cost share can range from anywhere from 50 to 100% cost share. One of the other programs that we can look at is a agricultural conservation easements. This program is all encompassing. It can cover wetlands, it can cover prairie land. It can basically looking at urban sprawl down say near Madison, Milwaukee area. How do we say take some agricultural lands, put an easement on them for conservation purposes, and then also protect them with, I'm going to say, soil and water quality practice, wildlife habitat, pollinator habitat, preserving the, I'm going to say, native landscape for a long time. Excuse me. Go ahead, Kathy.
Johnny, still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Yeah. So you're open for questions now then. John, is there a lot of competition for, I'm assuming you don't have a bottomless a fountain of money.
It depends. So we have multiple different funding scenarios, depending upon what the, I'm going to say, landowners' objectives are. A lot of our funds go towards, I'm going to say, agricultural retirement. So if there's an ag land that we can retire and put it into prairie, that usually, I'm going to say, ranks a little bit higher from a equip perspective than, let's say, taking a bluff prairie and restoring that back to its native landscape. So it's hit and miss depending upon where we're at in the year. And ultimately, we are working in a multi-county region here in Dunn County. So we are working with 6 or 7 other counties that our funds get aggregated, or our funds get aggregated to. And then we're trying to divvy out how our funds get spent that way. Each year, I want to say Dunn County alone, we probably get about $1 million for agricultural programs, whether it be, looking at cropland practices, looking at farmstead practices, or I'm going to say prairie practices. So depending upon where the applicants fall in and how they all shuffle out, there's a pretty good opportunity, I think, for some federal funding, at least I'm going to say locally, for that to happen.
Cool. Thank you, John. Thanks to all of our presenters. Now let's just open it up for questions. I don't see anything in chat. Maybe Anne Marie is seeing something, but she'll keep me honest about that.
Nothing so far.
All righty. So we're open for questions. So you can, if somebody wants to start, you can, what you can do is at the bottom of your screen, there's a thing called reactions, and you can raise your hand, or if you're shy, maybe somebody just wants to unmute and ask a question.
We have one question from Kevin, a question for John. Are there any minimum acres required for the NRCS programs?
Currently, no. Although I'd like to throw a caveat in there saying that we would prefer it to be ecologically feasible. So for example, trying, I'm going to say a prairie restoration within a urban setting may not meet our criteria. A prairie restoration in a rural setting probably would meet our criteria. So depending upon where the landscapes are, but for the most part, if we're going to be working in a rural landscape, if we'd be looking at a half acre, we would definitely like that. Now, a half acre in the middle of a forest, maybe that's not the best and the most feasible site for a prairie restoration. So maybe we would try to find some alternatives that way. So I'm going to say it's kind of site specific, but for the most part, it's not, there's no acreage caps.
Thanks, John. Other questions? Carol Jean.
I have another question for John. John, is the ASAP program, is it only for land that was in ag recently?
No, no. So there's a wetlands portion of the ASAP program. Then there is a agricultural, I'm going to say retirement option that way. So it does not have to be currently in ag land. It has to be, I'm going to say long-term benefit though, for the, I'm going to say the natural landscape is kind of the requirement that way. So each different county has different, I'm going to say criteria, and each different landscape has different criteria.
Okay. And is there a place to look at those?
I would say you could, probably your best bet would be to go to the Wisconsin NRCS website. And on our homepage, about in the middle of the screen, there is the 4 different programs. There's a EQIP program, a CSP program, and I believe ASAP is in there as well for some more information on that.
Thank you.
It looks like we have some questions on the chat here.
Yeah, there's a question from Christy. I'm not sure who you want to direct this to. Yeah, go ahead and ask.
So we need to either mow or have a prescribed burn on our 6 acres this season. Year 5 since dormant fall seeding through EQIP, Dunn County. I know, having taken the burn class, the conditions have to be just right and a burn can be aborted at last minute. We do have some funds left from our EQIP contract. But, and I know, Kathy, we've worked together out at Voss's and your place. So how do we initiate a prescribed burn if it's able to work out?
I take it your question is through the TPE chapter?
Yes.
Okay. You know, my suggestion is, you know, we could put this to Kathy Ruggles, but you know, she kind of handles the burn, those burn questions. But how about if we talk about that individually? Kathy, is that all right with you?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Kathy. Christy, we could talk to you individually, but right now we have these great people here to ask questions of, so let's focus on that.
Yep. And we'll get back to you, Christy.
I did want to say while I'm on that it's just been such a wonderful experience to work with Prairie Moon and with Quercus. They are so helpful. You know, they'll just spend hours with you talking on the phone or whatever to get things done. And I really appreciate both of you so much. Thank you so much.
You know, I have worked with all 4 of these presenters, and you know, the other thing I like about them, when I call and ask a question, they don't go, "Oh my gosh, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." You know, they are very willing to answer all questions, and I do truly appreciate that. Looks like we have another question here, another chat, Anne Marie.
Yeah, this one is from John. We recently purchased land and removed 2 fields, total of 12 acres from soybean corn rotation. We are not quite ready to commit the land to a CRP type program. Best practices to maintain until we are ready to commit is the question. I left it grow tall last year and the birds loved it. I hate to keep it mowed, but don't want the weeds to take over. Any comment?
My suggestion would be, depending upon where you're at and what your time frame is I'm going to say letting things go fallow usually ends up having more weed issues. So I would strongly suggest either continuing on with a commodity crop, whether it be corn, soybeans, small grains, and utilizing the agricultural producer as your site prep for your, upcoming planting, or yourself moving in there with I'm going to say like a full season cover crop? Can you come in there with a multi-species of oats, some brassicas, sunflowers, sorghum sudan, something that can, I'm going to say not overwinter. So you can basically next fall or that fall of preceding planting, basically everything would winter kill. You would have a vegetative mat there. You could take a no-till drill through and direct seed your seed into and go from there. I guess I'm going to maybe open it up to anyone else, Rob, Chris, or Sunshine, to see if they have any suggestions there as well.
Yeah, that's generally what I recommend. If you can't manage it, then find someone else who's gonna crop it, because they're essentially doing all that weed management for you, and you're getting a little bit of rental income in the meantime. The only thing I would add to what you said, John, was to consider what crop is going to go in before you're ready to seed. So we usually recommend that soybeans be put in before we're seeding a field to prairie. We usually find that works best, or to at least avoid corn, just because corn stubble is a little bit harder to plant into, and there's a little bit more leaf litter there.
Yeah, that was really great to hear from Rob and John. I mean, I think the skills you get and the information you get from somebody has boots on the ground like Rob does, that's really great information. Yeah, I would just second all of that, having your annual weeds drop those seeds are never really a good thing. And prepare, if you can, for having a fall seeding. Then all your seeds go on the ground at the same time. They get stratified all at the same time, and then they can germinate for you in the spring. You can certainly do it in the springtime as well. But then just realize that some of those seeds are going to need that winter time to be able to break their dormancies and go ahead and germinate. So if you can, then fall seedings are always really nice for that reason.
Other questions? I can sympathize what he was saying about the birds. When you get some of those taller things, it can be can be very conducive for bird population. But just think of all the wonderful birds you're going to get by the time you get your prairie going. Any other questions? I'm impressed with how well all of these different organizations work together. You heard Rob and Sunshine talk about how they work with one another, use one another's services. The same thing for with NRCS. That John has worked with the others, so we really appreciate that. We've got Chris here helping you with invasives, trying to figure out. Very often, one of the things when I've been involved with LSIP is that people want Chris to come out and take a look at what they've got, what in terms of invasives, thinking about going to prairie, thinking about what they can do with that property. So LSIP, offers a wonderful service about being able to help you analyze what you need to do to get rid of some pretty pesky invasives around our area. Any other, Carol Jean?
Yes, could the speakers put any contact information in the chat?
They're welcome to do that, and it might be handy for the recording to have that in chat. But I am going to send their contact information to all the people who registered.
Great.
So you'll be getting a follow-up email after I get this recording transposed to YouTube, and you'll get a YouTube recording as well as the contact information.
I have a question for Chris. Chris, I'm wondering, I've wondered this for quite a few years, and that's, is there a place to report invasives? Like, let's say you're just driving, or maybe you're riding on the bike trail or whatever. I mean, I've literally pulled off the bike trail until John was angry with me for pulling too much garlic mustard and throwing it in the middle of the trail. But, you know, given that we can't deal with everything we see, like if you see teasel in the ditch, or I've been really curious if there's a way to transmit that information to someone that would be sort of in charge of making sure it doesn't go any further into the area or that kind of thing.
Yes, there is a nationwide program called EdMaps, EDD Maps, and you can just do a search on that, and you can download an app on your phone or do it from your computer and map invasive species. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes to do a site population, and then that gets expert reviewed. In our area, they go to Madison, and then those get uploaded to the internet, so you can go to certain areas and look out what's been mapped within the last about 10 years now. It's been around. We do have a program where we train volunteers to use that program, and then they go out and map their roadsides in their townships. So that it does. I can put a link to our folder about that here in the chat.
Thank you so much.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, I think we've wrapped it up, and I've tried to write down everybody's contact information, and I will email that to everyone. Have you had a chance to write down what you want to write down? I don't want to end the meeting if you're still writing.
I just wanted to quick note that, first of all, thank you, Kathy, for doing this. This is really great. And I wanted to note also that this is my information, but I put our general phone number, because if you hit any of our sales reps, we are all really quite knowledgeable and can help you in many ways. And, we can always pass you around basically to our different people. So, and I will be stepping out in mid-April. I move into the field basically for the whole summer. So I'm hard to reach, but please feel free to call out the rest of our sales reps.
Thank you, Sunshine. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Sunshine. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, John. This has been wonderful. Thank you for all the information and your time. We really appreciate that. If others of you do have questions that weren't covered today, you will get their contact information so you can reach out to them on your own individually. So, that'll be great. And Christy, we'll get back to you about your question about the burn. This is going to conclude our panel discussion, and we are going to have a business meeting, our annual meeting right now, and TPE members are very welcome to hang in here, and we'll go to that meeting. Actually, you're all welcome to hang in here. We're going to be doing a little business meeting, we're electing officers, talking about what our chapter is going to be doing for the next year. So you're welcome to stick around, or if you would prefer to get to that dinner you didn't have a chance to get to, we certainly understand that. So thank you everyone, and thanks for all of you for joining our panel.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. See you later, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Good
everybody.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.
And thanks to you, Kathy, for organizing that. It was great.
Oh, aren't they wonderful?
Yep.
They're just, every single one of those people are just so service oriented and so committed to Prairie. It's just, they're just neat people. They're neat people. You know, the one thing I did not say, and I should have, and I'll try to cover that in the follow-up emails to them, is that there are other nurseries and landscaper stewardship services, you know, but you can't have them all. Yeah, so, you know, I'll just mention that in the follow-up email.
Sounds good.
Well, let's begin our business meeting. And I had at one point, let me just see what I've got in the way of an agenda. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. You know what? I'm also going to pause the recording.
Yeah,
Now the
oh, you
share-
paused the recording. Okay, good.
Yeah. So, you know, just excuse me while I fumble around. Are you sure you want to stop the recording?